Yo, what is up, guys? Joker here, bringing you another video for the 3.23 Affliction League, and I have no idea how to start this. We received so much, like, this is insane. This is the biggest meta shakeup we have seen in forever. Okay, so this is going to be a very high level video where I very broadly go over it just because of how much there is to go over, really. So I'm just going to start by playing the trailer
Something
for the
moves in the
league.
mists. Something sinister. Thorn.
I do want to say that I pretty
Bright.
much called it though, right? When
Plague
I was like, oh, we're
and
going to touch
claw.
something and then it's going to
The affliction
afflict the map.
spreads.
Yep, I fucking nailed
It
it.
hungers for more.
So this looks like it plays a lot
Dread
like
lightning in the
Abyss,
wildwood,
right? Like
which shifts
Abyss,
and fights.
Delve, even what? Even Incursion, right?
Accept
Where you
our help.
jump in and you
The
do something.
ancient power
This
of
is
the
the part
Ascendancies.
that's fucking insane though, dude. We
Beware
get
the
an
spirits
additional
that yearn for
entire
fire.
ascendancy. Like, what?
And the heart of
So
evil
we get to be
that
double
waits in the dark.
ascended. That's a thing. So essentially, that's what we do, right? We go into a map, we click it, we jump down the little abyss tunnel, and then we kill all these mobs. Oh, and
Ready
ultimatum's back. I
yourself.
forgot to mention that.
I
Dude,
will
there's
begin
just
to.
like so much. This has all the makings of the best Path of Exile League ever. Okay, so this reveal was kind of a lot. My brain feels like it's going to explode, right? I can't figure out how I want to format this. There's a million things rushing through my head that I want to cover. So I'm going to try to get this done in a somewhat formatted way. Like I said, this is going to be just like a high level video, and then I'm going to go into like individual theories on everything after just because there's an insane amount of stuff, right? It's probably, like I said, the biggest meta shakeup we've ever had. So let's get into it. So the league mechanic itself looks like it's going to work a lot like a lich, right? When you find a lich with abyss, where you jump into his tunnel and you clear a bunch of mobs and then you kill it, it's going to work somewhat like that, right? Where you jump down into this wildwood forest and you kill a bunch of mobs. You're going to be collecting a bunch of spirits that are called wisp, and these come in the same three flavors as harvest juice. You got the primal, you got the wild, and you got the vivid. I believe there's no way for these to be tradable since you get them inside of a wild wisp. I'm pretty positive they don't go anywhere as like an actual currency. So you're only going to be able to gather as many of these as you can in the wildwood. So if that gets boosted by things like Beyond, where additional mobs spawn, like additional density, is really probably what you're going to be trying to do in your maps. Juice it as hard as you can so you get just an insane amount of juice in this forest. And then that way, when you leave it, it disperses and you get pretty much a million loot pinatas. That's kind of what it seems like it's going to do. And then you do have the fucking Venus flytrap boss as well, Groot's cousin over here, looking like the inside of a penguin's mouth. And he's going to drop uniques like the other League Mechanic bosses. The uniques that we've seen don't seem that nutty. So maybe there'll be like an incredibly broken one, like they tend to do every couple of leagues. They like when the Mage Blood came out, Headhunter. What else do we got? We got what is the amulet? What is ashes and all those, right? I feel like this boss is going to probably drop a build defining unique just because of the fact that they did hit some of the other build defining uniques like ashes. So I feel like guy is going to probably potentially drop something, or it's just because they reworked so many skills and it's insane, dude. On top of that, they gave us a double ascendancy. So now we're going to have the potential of becoming double ascended. There are three new ascendancies that we can choose from. There's pretty much a pseudo pathfinder class, there's a minion class, and then there's an ascendant class, right? Where you pretty much make your own thing. So, like, if you're an ascendant, and you choose Wildwood Primalist as your second ascendancy, you're going to have an insanely customizable character, like the most customizable there has ever been, because not only the ascendancy giving you all that custom ability, you get pretty much four additional slots. I'm sorry, three additional slots of another ascendancy. And some of these actually do have really good effects. You get the jug not being able to be dropped below base move speed, right? You get free fortify, you get movement speed per frenzy charge, and seven. I mean, honestly, this one kind of sucks ass in my opinion, but the others are really good, right? You get the effects of concentrated ground last longer and free explodey on every class if you choose Primalist, right? And we'll go over the minion one as well because it seems pretty cracked on its own. You get a bunch of abilities that essentially support minions. You can have Hydra as a Spectre, dude. I can't wait for Gazzy's video on this, right? I want to see what he does because minions got a decent amount of changes, right? Overall, I think like every minion got some kind of change, pseudo buff to it. So I want to see that. Plus, all of these new specters, I think minions might actually be strong enough. Like, if you're a necromancer, right, and you choose this, then I think you're going to have an insanely broken build, right? Imagine running around with three or four hydras, running around with three or four minotaurs, on top of the fact that when you use this skill, it goes ahead and it consumes a corpse of a specific type and gives you buffs against that. So, Eldridge being all of the pinnacle bosses, you're going to have a sub ascendancy that gives you buffs against all of the pinnacle bosses if you choose this. That's just crazy. On top of the fact that some of these minions look cool as shit too, right? The frozen cannibal and the fiery cannibal, I just like the fact that they seem like they'll do a bunch of spam, right? If you have both of them out, they're going to be spamming a bunch of abilities. So that seems really interesting and cool there. I'm not a minion person, that's why I said I'm waiting for Gazzy to give feedback on that, but I think there has to be some potential because it even gives you hatred. It doesn't say what level hatred, but it still casts a free hatred. So that allows you to do some stupid shit on its own. Just having this as a specter, even if you don't even like jump fully into it as like your main skill, just having this as a support specter gives you free hatred, dude. I'm okay. I'm sorry. I had to pause. I don't want this video to be too ranty or too all over the place. I just wanted to cover everything at that high level. So we're moving on from the Warlock of the Mist and we're going to the Warden, right? The Warden has you essentially replacing your flask with these tincture jars, and they're pretty much like, I don't want to say stronger flasks because flasks are already insanely strong on their own. And since the only way we have to really buff these is going to be this, right? And I don't know if you would really choose to replace your flasks with this because just think of it this way. If you decide to go this ascendancy, you're pseudo locked out, you're kind of soft locked out of using a mage blood, right? Because you're not going to be having flask, you're going to have tincture jars. And I don't know if it really makes up for it enough. Like some of these are kind of cool, right? Like the MIDI inspired learning one is kind of cool, where you get Calling Strike, MIDI inspired learning, so mini headhunter, and then damage against low health enemies. If you go ahead and you buff that by 75% per empty flat slot, let's say you only have two tincture jars like this and a health flask, right? Then that's going to be buffing this by like 225%. So it would be like 40% increased damage and like a 40% chance to steal a buff, something like that. My math may be wrong. And then if you go here, and you have this flask adjacent to apply tincture jars gain 3 charges when you hit an enemy with a weapon no more than once every second. That's giving you kind of free flask sustain, and flats applied have 30% increased effect when you hit an enemy. So once again, if you have this and this and a bunch of empty flask slots, then you can potentially get some really, really strong tincture jars. We're just going to have to see if these are like examples of the higher or the lower, right? Because if they're an example of the higher, I don't I don't see you really taking this. And if you do, I guess you're going to go probably with the wood armor, right? The bark armor, because it gives you the ability of getting free chance to avoid ailments. We don't know how much the bark stacks up to, but this could be anything up until 100% chance to avoid a LE ailment for free, right? So it all depends on what kind of tincture jars there are. But as of right now, I would rank it probably one, two, three. Now, don't get me wrong. If we see some tinctures that are insanely cracked, right? They give like additional proj or power and frenzy charge on hit, or maximum charges, or what is something else that'd be kind of cracked? I mean, the Culling Strike is cool on its own, but just with something better than that, right? Like large crit multi, right? Some of the build defining things, or some things that are just more quality of life that you can scale to the moon with this, right? Like more damage, right? Imagine one of these has just like flat more damage on it, like the what is it? Like the Berserker Ascendancy, right? Where you just get free 40% more damage. Well, it's not free because you take more damage as well. But in the case of the tincture, what if it just gives us more damage, right? That would be insane, especially if we are able to scale it with stuff like this. Now, that's all subjective based on how these jars play out, right? If there's good ones, then it has a lot of potential. If there's not good ones, it's most likely the least picked one. Oh, and these are some of the uniques that they showed, which are rather interesting. It's really based around empty jewel slots and empty flash slots. That's like what this league is based around. They want us to have less jewels and less flash, honestly. So this what Pigmentism? I pretty positive I said that wrong. It has 100% increased armor, 84 mana, plus 12 to socketed skill gems, but you lose -2 to the level of socketed skill gems per socketed gem. So the only thing that I can really think of with something like this is if you do something like your main skill, it just doesn't need to be supported by anything, and you throw like an empower linked to it, right? Your main skill and empower would gain what? Plus 10 level, no, plus 8 levels, right? So you'd have like a level 12 in power, which would compensate for the 4 levels that you're losing, but you wouldn't have any other links. So I'm gonna have to wait for way better build makers than me to like come up with something like that. And then we have the Trickster Smile, reflect 100 cold damage to melee attackers, reflect 100 fire damage and 100 lightning. When an enemy hit when an enemy hit deals elemental damage to you, their resistance to those elements becomes 0 for 4 seconds. Uh, no, not not really. I'm trying to think. I mean, it's only a level 23 unique. I can't really think where or when this would be usable, right? Because a lot of times nowadays we're getting res to negative, not just 0, right? So I'm not really sure when reducing it to 0 will really be effective because it reduces it to 0 for 4 seconds. So that makes me feel like with that wording, it's going to stay at 0 for 4 seconds. So you won't be able to get it to negative. Like you won't be able to have it drop to 0 and then like flammability and curses kick in, which bring it to like negative. This makes me feel like it's just at 0, and I don't think that's quite good enough to make that viable for losing your entire helmet, right? And then we have this untouched soul ring, which once again is really interesting, but it's going to take someone else. That's not a ring, that's an amulet. It's going to take someone else to come up with a build because it looks like it might have potential, but it's based around empty slots, right? And nowadays, every build doesn't really have any availability, right? Like, I think if I think of a couple of my last builds, I don't think I've had any empty slots. So this would be like dead in the water for me because I don't know any builds that my socket pressure is so lenient that I would really be able to benefit from this because you're going to want to have multiple empty slots. You're not going to want to just have like one or two. You're going to want to have like five, six, seven empty slots to really get a benefit out of this. And then, like I mentioned, Ultimatum is back. If you don't remember Ultimatum was really cool and really good. I'm going to address it more in depth in another video because they did pseudo nerf it, but I think it's still going to be really good. It's replacing Metamorph, which rip Metamorph. I don't really know that many people that really enjoyed Metamorph, so it's not really a big loss, I don't believe. And then we have probably the biggest thing. This definitely needs its own video. They pretty much took alternate quality gems, lab enchants, and threshold jewels, smashed them together, and spit out gems, right? So this is what I meant by the largest meta shakeup we've ever had because some of these things are just insane and it like doubles the amount the doubles the play styles that you can have, right? Like let's just use the firestorm as an example, right? You can have a machine gun firestorm getting as much cooldown reduction as you can and just having this pretty much bamming the shit out of them. Or you can pretty much have an Oppenheimer fucking nuke meteor that blows up the entire map in one shot, dude. Like they have different damage scalings, they have different cache times, they have so this is a huge meta shakeup. I don't think anybody is really going to be able to put out guides saying these are the best league starters because technically we don't know. So that's why I was saying this league has potential of being like the best league ever, right? It's a good mapping mechanic. We get more power than we've ever had, and we have a huge meta shakeup. So this is probably the most hype I've been for a Path of Exile League in a while. But that's pretty much it. Like I said, I wanted this to be a high level video, and it's already like 16 to 20 minutes of me just rambling, I believe. But I'm going to have more specified videos going into theory crafting, a ton of different things, especially as closer to the league and we get more reveals and leagues and stuff. I'm going to get potential league starter ideas out there. If they show anything else, I'm going to have obviously Atlas starting strategies, builds that I think potentially could be good for this mechanic. TLDR, just any mapping build that goes zoomy and blows shit up. But yeah, I'm super hyped. I hope you are too. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date with this and future content, because this is the league to be hyped for, I hope. Oh, and until next time, take care.